Welcome into the Autzen Audibles podcast. Erik, Skopil, Mack on today's show. Another third person here on their screen, though. This is a big get for us on our show here. It's a very special guest. He remains an analyst on Talking Ducks, which is a great listen for Oregon fans. And he's one of the school's all-time greatest quarterbacks. You may know him better as Captain Comeback, but he's Joey Harrington. Joey, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And, before we get into Oregon football, because there's a lot of talk we need to get to here with you. I know you're very passionate about this. I wanted to get something else you're obviously very passionate about, which is helping the youth in this state, in this area. The Harrington Family Foundation, it's in its 11th year. And I know you've touched the lives of a lot of young people already. Can you give listeners kind of a background on this and then maybe an idea on the upcoming Bourbon Barrel Benefit Rally?
Yeah, for sure. So we're actually, I actually started the foundation when I got drafted in 2002. So we are 22 years in existence. Our scholarship program is in our 12th year. So what we do is we look for students who have shown community leadership around the state of Oregon. So every year we give 5 $25,000 scholarships to send students from any graduating high school senior from any state or any high school in the state to post-secondary education in state. So our goal is to find students who have invested in their community, students who love Oregon, students who love where they're from and want to come back and help. So our criteria for the scholarship has nothing to do with grades or test scores. It's financial aid and community leadership. And then we stay with them for their 4-year journey through college. And it can be U of O, it could be Oregon State, it could be Portland State, UP. We've got a student at Rogue Community College, Willamette, Linfield. Like, we've truly covered the state. But we give them access to a network of mentors, right? People who are established in the Oregon community who say, I want to help open a door, right? Because I think I had this experience at a young age in terms of acknowledging I wouldn't be where I was without the help of somebody else, somebody opening a door, somebody sharing information, and I was a lucky one, right? I was a lucky one that if I didn't have football, I would have been okay. But there's so many great students out there who are looked over or passed over because they don't have perfect grades or they don't have perfect test scores, or, maybe they have to work a part-time job. Maybe you have to watch your younger brother after school. But they still love Oregon, they still love their community, and they want to give back. And so those are the students that we're looking to find to help get them integrated into the community and give them a track to be in positions of leadership as they get older.
Joey, thanks again for coming on the podcast. Really excited to have you on here. I'll touch more on the foundation. Just I want to know what your original inspiration was for doing this. You said that you started this when you were drafted in 2002. Not a lot of guys who are, just recently drafted are thinking about, starting up a foundation like this. I just want to know what your inspiration was in terms of doing this and helping out the community.
Yeah. So, like I said, I knew that I was lucky. I knew that I was, sure, I worked really hard to get to where I was, to be the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft, but I was very aware of all the people who helped get me there. And I knew that if I did things the right way, that I would be in a position where I wouldn't have to, or I should say that I could focus on giving back when I was done. Right. And so it's funny, the funny story is I came back after I retired and went to the office of one of the bank presidents who had been so helpful and supportive in some of our fundraising concerts. And I said, all right, let's do the foundation thing. Let's do it. And at that point we just, we gave small grants to anybody who essentially wrote us an application. And he said, look, I love what you're doing, Joey. I love your passion. But if you're telling me that if the money I give to you, you're going to turn around and give it to Boys and Girls Club, why would I just give it to Boys and Girls Club? And I said, you got a point. I don't have an answer. I'll call you in 6 months. So that was the impetus for deciding what this program was going to be. And it was essentially like a rebranding. If you're going to think of me, you're going to think of being a quarterback. Quarterback is a position of leadership. I was from the state of Oregon. I came back to the state of Oregon. I'm not going anywhere. You're going to have to move me out of this place in a a wood box. Like this is home. I left for a while. I came back. And so the idea of giving scholarship opportunities to young students who truly care about Oregon and want to make Oregon better and finding like the next generation of leaders in our state, that was what really seemed to resonate. And, you know, I'll be honest, like part of the biggest part of my job right now is fundraising. But if you told me 5 years ago that Buffalo Trace Distillery back in Kentucky was going to donate 3 barrels of bourbon for us to use to raffle off to fund our scholarship program, like I never would have thought it. Like my job is I'm so lucky to have all these organizations that believe in what we're trying to do. And it's not a bad gig.
Well, before we move to football, just let our listeners know how they can get involved. And I know the Bourbon Barrel benefit raffle is still underway. There's still openings. There's a limited numbers, like 1,500 people who can be a part of that. Is there still openings for people to take part in that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So we sell raffle tickets for a bottle of Pappy, €15, and then 4 bottles of the single barrel of E.H. Taylor that I got to go out and select out of the distillery last year. And yeah, tickets are $100 a piece. Everything goes to our scholarship fund, the Bourbon Barrel Benefit. You can buy tickets online at harringtonfamilyfoundation.org, or I jokingly say, I'm not sure if you know that let me preface this. I hate social media. I hate all the, like, I can't do it, but I have to. So I jokingly say I'm a social media influencer. So I will be blasting it all out on Twitter and all that fun stuff. So harringtonfamilyfoundation.org for a chance to win a bottle of Pappy 15-year and a few bottles of some pretty unique E.H. Taylor bourbon that I got to pick myself.
Awesome. We'll also include a link in the description on the YouTube page and also on the audio for those listening. Okay. You kind of an interesting transition because I'm about to reference a social media post you just made about an hour and a half ago, Mr. Influencer. Tomorrow's the Heisman Trophy ceremony. And I saw you post about Dillon. You were the first finalist. He's the 5th at Oregon. I was going to ask you about this before you posted about it, just because it was so timely. What are kind of like your emotions tied to that whole experience? And like, when you think back to it, like what stands out for you? Because that was very unique for Oregon, obviously the first one to be there.
It was hugely. I mean, I think unique is kind of a small word for that. That was the culmination. I shouldn't say that. The Fiesta Bowl was the culmination of it, but that was just another step in this massive marketing campaign that was the 2001 season, right? We'd had some success in 99 and 2000 and, finished with our first 10-win season and beat Texas in the Holiday Bowl. And then all of a sudden they threw me up on a 10-story billboard in New York with my name crossed out and, Joey Heisman, with, obviously the intent of me getting there in December. Had we lost that first game against Wisconsin, or frankly, any other game other than that Stanford, and we won't talk about the Stanford. But, we ended up finishing that season 11-1, right? We were the greatest team in the history of Oregon football. And had we only won 7 games, had we won 8 games, had we just had a good season, like I wouldn't have been there. I wouldn't have been in New York for that weekend. So acknowledging, I was very aware of growing up in the state and seeing, frankly, we'd been the doormat of the conference for so long, and then to see, to have the honor of truly being the first Oregon Duck to sit in there as a Heisman Trophy finalist was amazing. The ironic thing, and a bit funny, is when we were introduced, the president of the Downtown Athletic Club, welcomed us all that first, I think it was the Friday night, please welcome Ken Dorsey from the University of Miami, and please welcome Rex Grossman, University of Florida, and Erik Crouch from the University of Nebraska, and please welcome Joey Harrington from Oregon State University. And the whole room was like, oh, and he says, oh, sorry, from University of Oregon. I was like, okay. So I know I'm not going to win, right? That being said, I looked to the people next to me, who were, passing out, a little banquet thing, and they had like appetizers and drinks. I was like, is that stuff free? And I was like, yeah, free drinks tonight. I was like, I'll have two, because you know what? I'm not winning, and I'm going to have a great time this weekend. So that weekend was like the most incredible, just soaking it in, no pressure, but also acknowledging like this is an incredible milestone and hopefully a stepping stone for what this program is going to become.
I got more Heisman talk for you. I'm wondering if you've had the chance to talk to Dillon about this, about him being a final. I know he was just named a finalist like last week, but have you had the chance to kind of talk to him about this? And would you recommend for him, who, probably won't win the award as well, but would you recommend having 2 drinks for him too?
I would recommend him doing whatever works for him. Look, I have not had a chance to speak with him directly about Heisman. Our conversations have been about culture, but the family of Oregon football, right? How well and how immediately he truly embraced everything about Eugene, embraced everything about the team. Because it sounds pretty cliche to say, but Oregon football is different, right? You get into the NFL locker rooms, and it's full of guys from Georgia and Alabama and USC and Michigan and Ohio State and Florida, and you go down the list of all those teams that are true blue blood college football programs. They have national championships. They have rings. They have a long and storied history. And so it's almost like you're not a cog in the wheel, right? But, when you're part of the Notre Dame football program, that's that's generations. Oregon's football success, we're talking about decades, right? We're talking about like a very small window, a very small group of guys that have just exploded onto the scene, but still have not accomplished what it is that we set out to do, with that 2001 team. And every year, it seems like we get closer, right? Whether it's the computers in the BCS in 01, whether it's Dennis's knee in 09, whether it's Michael Dyer's forearm in 2000 or 07 was Dennis, and 2010 was Michael Dyer, and then what was 14? We just kind of ran out of gas, and some injuries against Ohio State, and then we had a bad game against Arizona State in 2019, and I mean, like, you can literally just like go down like how close we've been for so many years. And each group that's come through has understood that. And each group has understood what it takes and how hard you have to work to truly get over the top. Because there have been, give you a list of programs that have been on the verge and then disappeared, right? Mm-hmm. West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU, I mean, you can just like go down, like all these programs, Virginia Tech, all these programs that have been there so close and then fallen off and disappeared. We have sustained this for 3 decades and done it in a way that has truly, I don't want to say drawn the envy of those blue blood programs, but have definitely drawn the eyeballs.
Yeah.
Right? It's a really unique place to be. Now, back to the original question of Dillon. What has made him so successful, I believe, and both him and Coach Lanning and Tosh and that entire staff is how they've embraced that, how they've owned like what Oregon football means. Right? It means a little bit more because we have to work a little bit harder. because we haven't cracked that ceiling. And that builds a connection. And it sounds funny to say because we've been near the top for so long, but we haven't gotten through. So our conversations were about, at least from me to him, was to say thank you. Thank you for how you've carried yourself. Thank you for how you've represented this university. Thank you for how I've truly embraced like the family, thrown the team in your minivan and like said, let's go do this. Like that's been my conversations to him. Is just to say thank you for being who you are and being genuine and wrapping your arms around this program, as opposed to using it springboard for something of your own good, right? That's and in terms of like whether or not or how he chooses to enjoy this weekend, man, that's on him. Enjoy it however you want because he's earned it.
Yeah, and I think he's earned the respect of this fan base in a unique way so quickly with just 1 year. I mean, we can get into a larger discussion if we want about the portal on how it impacts the way, I guess, fan bases appreciate and receive players. But I think it's been so organic and seemingly transitions happen so quickly where this is his team and he's only been here 6 to 8 months. And I want to, if you have thoughts on that, you can address it in a second. But I wanted to ask you about quarterbacking in general and your thoughts, just because it's been 20 plus years since you were here. Like how have you seen the position change? I mean, the offenses are very different now. Like are the skill sets in your eyes when you're watching Dillon significantly different from what you saw when you were playing? And I asked because he's completing like 70+% of his passes. That wasn't a thing that happened 20 years ago. I'm just curious on your thoughts on the position as a whole, and then also Dillon and his fit here.
So if you're looking at statistics, the evolution of the game has led to the increase in statistics, right? People are throwing, there have been rule changes which have made it easier for the offense, in football. There have been changes in philosophy, offensive philosophies, and getting the ball out of your hand, quick screens, bubble screens that have, those passing percentages, completion percentages, have swung things back into the favor of the offense. There's one thing, but it's one thing to put up numbers, and it's another to put up quality, important wins. And that doesn't change, right? The quarterback position is in my mind the most difficult in sports, because not only do you have to have this skill set yourself, but you have to know what everybody else on the field is doing. You have to direct them, and then you also have to lead them. And you have to do it in a way that's genuine. You have to do it in a way that they believe in you. Because, and we saw it last week in the Big Ten championship game, there's going to come a point where you got one shot to get a first down. You got one shot to score a touchdown. You got one shot to move this team, and the team is looking at you. How do you come up in that situation, right? So you can get a guy who can go out and complete 68% of his passes for 3,000 yards, and then when that moment hits, kind of shy away from it, and your team ends up 8-4. Right? But the truly great ones are the ones who in that moment not only make themselves better, but lift those up around them. And that's the skill set that Dillon, that Bo, that they both had, right? So even though they were transfers coming in, they were extremely talented, but they were able to make those around them better. And, for the most part, pieces didn't fall into place for Bo, but, for Dillon, when that opportunity has come, he's taken advantage of it. So I would say he's got that type of skill set doesn't change with the generations of offensive football. Being a leader, setting an example and being a leader, doesn't matter if you're playing in the 70s or 90s or now, that stays the same as a quarterback.
I got another offensive question for you. Just I want to know, like, with your expertise and your knowledge of football, when you watch Will Stein kind of cook like he did in the Big Ten championship game, do you have as much fun as some of us being able to look and kind of diagnose his plays? And just what do you think of the offense just going forward into this playoff bracket?
It's funny, I was talking to somebody about that during the game. And the fun part that I have, and it's not necessarily Will specific, but he's doing a great job, is to be able to sit up and, like, if I'm watching a game, I don't want to be 50-yard line front row. I want to be about the 35, up about 60 rows to see how this all develops. And I had that opportunity a couple times in the game in Indianapolis to be able to just sit up and watch it. And I was sitting next to the guy, sitting next to a friend, and, motion comes down. I was like, oh, here we go, over the top, across the middle, you got to, you can see it develop. And he's like, how did you know that? I was like, because earlier in the game, he motioned down and he set this up. And so he's going to widen this guy. And now with, if he widens the leverage, now he can beat him inside later in the game. Like, the way Will has set things up is frankly, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. And if that continues throughout the playoffs, they're going to be a tough out.
Yeah, no question about it. And I'm curious on your thoughts here, Joey, on just the move to the 12-team playoff. And this is unique. It's more inclusive. The way the bracket has fallen out, it feels like there's maybe an equity in terms of what your regular season results are and how the placement of everything works out because of the buys. But just like broadly, what do you think of this? What do you think of Oregon's chances? Kind of where's your head at now that we've got a couple weeks to digest all this before Oregon plays again?
Okay, well, two things. One, going back to kind of what we've talked about, or what I was saying earlier, in previous years, what are they, 13-0? 13-0 which would have gotten you a national championship, right? Last time when I was playing, if you go 13-0, you're walking out with some hardware. So unfortunate in the year that we have the team that is truly the top of college football. All right, we got to do a little bit more. Not only do we have to do a little bit more, we have to go 16-0. Name the two teams in the history of college and professional NFL football that have gone 16-0.
I think
Dolphins.
And didn't Clemson do it in college football?
15.
15? Okay.
They went 15.
Were those your Patriots?
Teams? I'm not sure.
Patriots.
The Patriots did go 16-0, but didn't finish the season undefeated.
They went 16-0, and then they lost in the Super Bowl, right? Mm-hmm. So here's my point.
Oh yeah,
it's the Patriots. One team in the history of professional sports has finished a season 16-0 and won the championship. The other team, the Patriots, went 16-0 through the regular season and then got to the very end and lost. Which that Patriots team, arguably, I would argue that Patriots team was the best of all of them. I mean, that team was absolutely incredible. And they still lost in the championship. They lost in the Super Bowl, which says how difficult it is to truly run the table and go start to finish without losing a game. So, is Oregon the best team in college football right now? Yes. Is it still going to be a hell of a road to get there? Yes. And that being said, I don't care about rankings or seedings or who's tougher or who's got the easier path or I don't care. At this point, you're going to have the top 8 teams in college football. Go win, go play. Don't complain about whether or not you're going to play a team that had 2 losses or 1 loss or 3 losses, and don't whine about being the 13th team, to be left or the first team left out. I don't care. If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. Right? Yeah. Let's go play football. And that's the only way you can approach this. Otherwise, the moment you start thinking about oh man, we should have been playing, name a team. We should have had the 5 seed and it would have been an easier path. Look at Penn, what Penn State has to do. That's that. The moment you start thinking like that is the moment that you get knocked off. And the moment that you end up is 18-1, like the Patriots. So this is an incredible team, and it's going to be a hell of a hard road to get there.
Sticking on the college football playoffs, do you have a fix? If we grant you rights to go and try to fix the college football playoffs, what would you change?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I don't
Okay.
care. I mean, I wouldn't give Clemson a bye just because they played in the ACC over Boise. I don't care. I mean, it's like, you're going to tell me that Boise isn't a good football team. Sure, they don't play the schedule that other teams do. They did go to Oregon in the non-conference, right? Sure, they lost. They won their conference championship game. I'm thinking of Gonzaga in basketball. Sure, they haven't won the championship yet, but how many Final Fours, how many Elite Eights, how many times they've been in the championship game? They've proven that they deserve to have those type of seeds. I'm not going to sit here and quibble about, who should get what. You expanded the playoff. We got. Whether at this point, whether it's 12 or 16, or whether tweaks need to be made about reseeding or who ends up where, I don't care. I genuinely don't care. Like, we got it. Let's go play football.
You unintentionally reminded both Jared and I of some big tough losses. I'm a Gonzaga grad, so those Gonzaga shortcomings. Yeah. I went to school with Matt Santangelo, so there you go.
Keith Fromm and Casey Calvary, that squad, they were that close against UConn. But that's another show. That's another show for another time.
And Jared's a Boston sports fan, so the Patriots. That's
didn't need to be reminded of it. It's what everybody brings up. Unfortunately, both the Giants losses still haunt me.
One or two more before we let you go and get on with your day, because I know you got some plans here. Just curious on what your relationship with Dan is and how that's evolved over time from when he was hired here to, and I guess in part I'm curious on what his outreach looks like to former players, because we hear about it, but I don't have a whole lot of examples, or I'm not a former player that he's reached out to. Just what is that like? What's that relationship been like with you?
Honestly, as good as I could have hoped, like better than I could have hoped. He was literally, I shot him a message when he came to town, and he was down the street at the Blazer game. I was like, hey, doors open if you want to swing by and have a beer. Love to catch up, love to say hello and welcome you to town. And I'm not kidding, 36 minutes later, he's sitting in the backyard, he and Tosh, and just connecting. That's the thing, and then beyond that, he's like, hey, help me, where should we go to the coast this week, this summer? Like, where? And so, he snaps a pic of him and the family hiking on the Oregon coast. And I told him, hey, let's get the wives, families together. We'll go out to Oregon wine country or whatever. And sure enough, the follow through, the connection, he is. Not only is he a fantastic football coach, but he connects. I understand why the players love to play for him. You want to play for somebody who you feel is as invested as you are. Right? So when your coach puts in the time, when your coach puts in the effort, when your coach is literally, I won't say frothing at the mouth, but there've been a couple times on that sideline where it's like, ooh, Dan's, he's getting maybe a little too into it. When you see your coach like that, it means something to him, right? The same thing has been true for Dan and his outreach to players, former players, community. When you see him make the effort, when you see him, schedule 3 months out, a trip to come out and hang out with, my wife and I and Wes Mallard and his wife, Emily and Whitney, and bring the family out. That means something. That says I care about this place. I want to build relationships. I'm not just here to, springboard it to somewhere else and use Oregon's name to better myself. That is everything that I could have asked for from a coach. Right? Somebody who embraces us. Oregon's different now. This isn't the East Coast. This isn't the South. This is a place that's, you go around the country, and yes, it feels normal and it feels comfortable to us, because we live here, but you go around the country and people look at, that Northwest like, what the hell is going on up there? It's a different place. And to see somebody like Dan coming from where he did, to see him come in and embrace and truly like dive head first into the family, I mean, that means a lot. Like that is, I'm struggling to find the right adjective, but it's because there's a lot of us who've put years of effort into building this. Like literally put years of our lives into building something that this university, this community, this state can be proud of, right? And whether it was our group in 2000, 2001, or like we talked about, like go year by year, group by group, player by player, like we put part of our lives into this, and to see him love and embrace and wrap his arms around that and say like, let's go, like let's take this over the finish line. It's pretty incredible. Dan has been absolutely everything that I could have ever wanted as a head coach of the Oregon football program.
Last one from me. At one point during this 13-0 season, did you realize that your Lucky Dan shirt had supernatural powers and was a clear advantage to the Ducks?
After the Boise game, because I forgot to wear it the first 2 weeks. Like week 1, I didn't wear it against Idaho. I was like, man. And then after the Boise game, I was like, oh, I forgot to wear it again. And like that, I was like, I'm sorry, that's my fault. I put the shirt on. It's been, since. So that shirt has gone. The funny story is a buddy of mine who he retired from the Timbers a few years ago. His father-in-law owns a t-shirt company called Smack Apparel, and he'd shoot me ideas like, hey, what do you think about this? He did a shout shirt, and he did a shirt a couple years ago and went to Columbus and beat Ohio State. What do you think about this? And he sent me a proof of the Dan the Man shirt. He's like, what do you think of this one? I was like, absolutely, send it to me. I'm a size large. That's my lucky shirt. And
there it is.
well, I mean, not that I'm taking credit for it, but the last 11 games, it purely has to do with the shirt. So I don't know.
Of course, yeah. Do you wash it?
I wash it.
Yeah.
I do. Okay.
Okay.
I went through a phase when I was playing where I didn't wash Lucky things.
See, yeah.
And then that just got like really gross and smelly. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm like a parent and somewhat of an adult, I see like how funk affects people, and I don't want to affect people with my funk. So I do wash it. And actually, here's my rationale is I am treating that Lucky shirt with the love and care that it deserves. Mm-hmm. I hang it, press it, Hey, it's that gets you don't just shove it in a corner and keep your smelly pit stains on it. Like if it's a Lucky shirt, you have to treat it as so.
Right. Yeah, I feel like it's about the shirt. It's not necessarily about the wearer of the shirt. So yeah, clean it, keep it in good condition, keep wearing it.
Oh yeah. Although if this does take it over the finish, if they do take it over the finish line, I don't know what, like, do you keep, I'm not even going to say it. Not even going to say it. Like we'll
cross that bridge if we get there. Yeah,
exactly.
That seems like a great place to stop, Joe. I appreciate your time. We will put the link in there. If anybody's looking for some bourbon, there's a path with a raffle here that they can sign up for. We'll put the link, as I said, in the description. Joey, thank you so much for your time. It's been great catching up with you. And again, really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.